Hi guys, welcome to Making Sawdust. I'm Kevin. Thank you for joining me. Today we are going to build a flip top or a stowaway section for my bandsaw right in this bench. So stick around. I want to show you how I plan this, cut stuff, screw things and glue things, measure parts and cut more stuff, along with losing my tape measure and looking for my pencil. And you know most of the rest, so let's get started. My basement workshop is only 254 square feet. I have a lot of tools in my shop, and most of them have a place to live already. The miter saw, the floor drill press, my big craftsman table saw right here, it has a place to live. My planer has a place to live. The bandsaw does not. Now, if you remember a few videos ago, I built a scroll saw cabinet, which holds a lot of my hardwood scraps, some of the accessories for my scroll saw, but I've also put my 4-inch by 36 belt disc sander on there too. The beauty of having your tools mounted to something and available, it really does create a lot of efficiency in a small workshop. And it allows you a little more creativity sometimes to have an option and use another tool. And that's what we're doing here today. We're going to mount this in a stowaway section underneath my bench. All I have to do is flip it up and use it at a moment's notice. I can put it back away and stow it away. And it still leaves this area open for my glue ups and my assembly. A lot of times I like to start my design with a sketch. I keep some graph paper and some scratch paper down in the shop, and I start with a sketch. You can use your computer, you can plan on the fly in your head, but that doesn't always work for me. And sticking with the theme of use what you got, not what you ain't, I have some leftover 2x6s that I'm going to turn into 2x4s. Some of them are actually cupped really bad, and I can take some of the cup out of them. I actually have some pretty uniform stock at this point. I haven't had time to make a table saw sled yet, so I'm just using my miter gauge to trim all my stock. But that is coming in the near future. I'm making dados on the ends of all my stock here. I didn't opt to put in a dado stack because it just takes too much time. I only have, I think, 6 pieces to cut dados in. And as long as you use a flat top grind blade, I'm using a Diablo flat top. That actually would give you a very nice finish instead of your alternating tooth grinds. I'm taking a chisel and cleaning these dados up, any residual chips or anything. Here is where it's really important to make sure your dados are correct and square, because this frame and this assembly has to be dead square for it to operate correctly. These 4 pieces need to have a 1/2-inch hole drilled in them to accept the pivot rod. So I'm marking the center lines, and I'm going to transfer the mark to my first board. And as I drill each board, I'm going to be able to transfer that mark to the corresponding pieces over on my drill press, so all those holes are directly in line. On the outer 2 frame pieces, I'm taking a 5/8-inch Forstner bit, which is going to give me a little bit of slop on my pivot rod. I don't really need any issues of binding. I'm also cleaning up the sides with my chisel, and the ends of the pivot rod are going to slide in these grooves to allow my intersection to pivot. I needed to find a way to lock this into position so it wouldn't pivot. I don't really have any clamps or latches, and I don't want to run to the big box store. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a couple registration pins. I have a few lag bolts here. I think they're 1/4 inch diameter lag bolts, and I also have some aluminum tube that I'm going to cut basically a collar or a sleeve about 1 inch long, and the lags are going to get installed into this back, and registration holes installed on the back of this flip frame. That's going to allow me a positive positioning mechanism on the back side of this frame. It's also not going to allow it to pivot. And I'm also going to drill corresponding holes on the front of the frame, so when it's pivoted, it can also lock right back in. So now it's time to mount my assembly in the bench. And I've taken my measurement and I've marked my front piece off here. And I'm going to basically we have to cut that front of the bench off. It's going to get screwed over to this side. We're going to build in a support along the back side and then build in a support right here. That'll all be framed in. And then the next step, we can actually see if it slides in and out, and we can mount some tabletop to it. And we will be finished with this project, guys. Okay, for those of us that have small shops, unique spaces, ideal situations, flip-top carts are a great option. I really love that idea. The mobility is really great. You could have 2 tools attached to a cart, move it around your garage or your basement. Not in this case, though. I have a dirt floor. It's an uneven floor, so I really don't have the footprint either for a rolling cart. So now's the moment of truth, guys. Just like that. It actually is really, really secure. My next step is to cut this melamine countertop. I'm going to use a circular saw to make these 2 cuts, but then I'm going to use my table saw to make this cut. Now I need to remind you that this is a 2-person job. For me especially, this is a 8-foot sheet of melamine. It's 2 feet wide. It's kind of heavy. I could probably kind of manage it, but it's really not safe. So I called my friend, and we're going to attempt this cut. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to lay out exactly how we're going to do this first. I've laid out my cut right here, measuring from the same end both times. And because I have my friend over here, I can measure, give out a measurement or a call out, and he can be at the board and measure and laying it out for me. That is a huge benefit of having a second hand in a shop. So what I've done is I've measured these 2 cuts and my back cut. What we're going to do first is we are going to set our table saw fence to this dimension right here, making sure we cut on this side of the line. We are going to plunge our blade in somewhere in the center, and I'm going to demonstrate this. And then we will move the melamine sheet back in the table saw conventional cutting wisdom, and then we will move it forward until our blade just barely hits that corner. We'll come back in with a circular saw and cut these 2 out. We're good to go. That way I can talk about it. as you see, I was just using a 24 tooth framing blade, and you can get some serious chip out on melamine. Even my table saw blade did it here. So what I'm going to do is I just chamfered with my file. That makes a huge difference. Next, we're going to screw on our melamine. What side do you think we should pick? There was a couple challenges actually with this. I actually had not accounted for the thickness of my material, the melamine on the top, so I actually had to whittle with my Dremel little drum sander thingy some notches in the front and the back so it'll swing. Here we are, folks. I made a flip top, or a stowaway, whatever you would like to call it, for my Craftsman bandsaw. It's very limited on space. Underneath this bench, under this back part, is all dirt. So I only had about 12 inches to work with right here. Saw isn't very big, not a huge footprint. I did have a couple challenges when designing this. Obviously, my little notch holes right here. I had to swing. One other problem that I have to remove my bandsaw table for it to stow all the way underneath there. Like I said, I only have about 12 inches. The front side of the table was actually hitting my plywood, well, retaining wall underneath. If you haven't seen any of those build videos, how I built my 24-foot long benches, there's a card right there, and also down in this description, there's a link to that playlist. One of the main reasons I built this stowaway is efficiency. It can be stowed under the bench. I can flip it up when I need it, put 2 thumb screws in it. The table is on, plugged in, ready to go in a few minutes. Before, it was sitting over on that cabinet taking up space, or sitting over on the other bench taking up space. And if I needed to use it, a lot of the times I had stuff stacked on it. So I had to move that stuff, move my saw over, possibly clean off an area on my bench to put the saw, and then plug it in. An entire hassle that I really didn't want to go through. And also weight. The saw maybe weighs 35 pounds, but if I got to carry it from 10 feet over there to over here, you know, I'm getting older. I got to think about health and efficiency and how much harder I need to work or how much easier I need to work. This actually creates an awesome solution for me. I have another tool that I want to mount in a flip top or stowaway, but you got to wait for that. I think one of the main takeaways in this video that hopefully you guys can get is try to create some efficiency. Use some space that's possibly dead space, like I have underneath my bench. It's really just a toe kick area. It's only about 12 inches deep. But I was able to mount this, flip it under there, create efficiency, create more working space for myself. And I'm most likely going to use this tool more often. I want to thank each and every one of you folks for sticking around with me here on Making Sawdust. Your support really, really helps me. If this is the first time to this channel, please consider clicking the subscribe button. Give me a like, and always leave me a comment. I love to hear what you guys are thinking. I would love to hear what you guys are going to do with this stowaway idea. Maybe you have a different type of bandsaw. Maybe it's a bench grinder. Maybe it's a scroll saw. I'd love to see those ideas. So why don't you pop into the Under 500 Facebook group, which is dedicated to people that have shops under 500 square feet. So now it's time for me to say the old cliche ending. Why don't you get outside, make some sawdust.